Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Flies and ticks have really come on strong the past few weeks in Oklahoma, and here to talk about it this morning is Justin Talley, our Extension Livestock Entomologist. And Justin, you and the team have been conducting some research out here this morning. Give us an idea of what you have going on.
Yes, for the past 3 weeks we've been sampling ticks and flies off cattle, and we're trying to match it up to a fecal chemistry profile that's in conjunction with Dr. Pete Till at Texas A&M University. We're one of his sampling sites, and what we've noticed through this project is our ticks and flies have really increased in their population loads.
And as we've seen in the last few weeks, that has really happened. Give us an idea of what the scenario has been and kind of what the conditions have been to make that happen.
Yes, so the conditions the last 2 weeks have been ideal for ticks and flies, and especially for flies when our temperatures at nighttime don't go below 50 degrees and hover around 60 degrees, and our daytime temperatures are around 90 degrees or upper 80s. That's just ideal for flies to develop at a rapid rate. And now is the time, and so if you don't get anything out now, then you could be dealing with a significant fly population that it's hard to get ahead of.
Let's talk about ticks now and kind of what the options are there in terms of treating the animal and maybe treating the space that the animal kind of lives in.
So ticks are one of the most common problems in Oklahoma, especially for Oklahoma cattle producers, and it's a two-pronged approach because it's not only the ticks on the animal, it's the ticks out in the pasture. So when you have ticks out in the pasture, that's the most challenging thing to deal with because it's hard to manage ticks in a large area, and also it's hard to manage an area that it may not be conducive to put out an insecticide or do any kind of management that you can change your forage quality. We do know that if you burn periodically your pastures, it reduces the tick load, but it's a good burn, not a burn that just does the surface of the grass. The other issue is that if you put a product on an animal, is that know how it works. There's a lot of products that are pour-ons that are going to last about 3 weeks at most. Most of our sprays, that when you spray animals for ticks, you need to get a really thorough spray on that animal.
Now we hear about, of course, tick-borne illnesses that impact humans. Is there some of that same risk for livestock?
So the main risk to livestock is anaplasmosis, and ticks are the main vector of anaplasmosis, meaning they are a biological vector. They're not only transmitting it, but that bacteria is replicating within the tick. So if a tick feeds on an infected animal and then falls off that animal, then the tick is still replicating that pathogen. So when they feed on an uninfected animal, they have a high incidence rate of infecting that animal with anaplasmosis.
Is now the window of opportunity for tick treatment similar to fly treatment, or what is the repetition there?
So basically with tick treatment, it's all about your location. And sometimes it's depending on how much wildlife you have going through your property. Wildlife can bring ticks onto your property. A cattle manager can do everything right by treating his animals now, but still have ticks in July and August. So we certainly want to start now, but keep thinking about it all the way through July and August as well.
Okay, Justin, thanks a lot, and best wishes on the research for you and your grad students out here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet Weather Report. As we come to the end of May, we can feel summer settling in on us. The days are hotter and the winds lighter. The rain as important as ever. Over the 30 days from April 23rd through Wednesday afternoon, the yellow, orange, and red areas have had a decent amount of rainfall. The green areas on this 30-day map received rain, but still below average. The lack of rain is easier to see on a 30-day rainfall map that shows the percent of normal. Orange and red areas have seen half or less of their normal rainfall from late April into May. The Mesonet site with the lowest percent of normal was Broken Bow at 19%. Green and blue areas are close to or above average. Chickasha is the winner at 164% of normal. Switching over to the water year that began back on October 1st, we see an east to west pattern of more rain in the east and less rain in the west. Eufaula had the highest percent of normal rainfall since October 1st, 127%. Boise City and Kenton have received only 27% of their average rainfall so far this water year. The long-term lack of rainfall in western Oklahoma is why we see the continued D4 blood red areas in the northwest and panhandle regions on this week's Drought Monitor Map. Bright red areas, D3, cover a wide swath of western Oklahoma. The drought designations drop and then disappear as you move east on the map. There is a small area of improvement between Beaver and Buffalo with a D2 drought designation. Temperatures have climbed from warm to hot. Tuesday's maximum air temperatures had 11 Mesonet sites with highs in the 90s. Wednesday, that had jumped to 35 sites at 90 or above. The higher temperatures, high humidities, sunny days, and lower wind speeds all combine to drive up cattle comfort levels. Even on Tuesday, a day mostly in the 80s for daytime high air temperatures, the Cattle Comfort Index highs were above 105 at 39 Mesonet sites. Both Okmulgee and Broken Bow had Cattle Comfort Index highs of 111. Cattle Comfort Index values above 105 are times to avoid working or moving cattle. It's also when cattle need extra water to stay fully hydrated. We have moved into a neutral Pacific Ocean pattern. That has been part of the reason why June's rainfall outlook is equal chances of being above normal, near normal, or below normal. The good news is that we are not looking at increased odds of below normal rainfall. There are increased odds of above average temperatures for the month of June. Hopefully you have a favorite lake or pool close by to cool off in. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Mesonet Weather Report.
One of the new faces at Lahoma this year is Dr. Seth Bird. And Seth, you're a cotton guy. You come from the East Coast, but recently you've been in the cotton belt of Texas.
Yes, I came from Lubbock, so pretty large cotton patch down there, and started here end of April. So happy to be at OSU in Oklahoma.
Well, we're glad to have you. And one of the things that you're going to be doing is really focusing on the cotton crop, but the expanded acres across Oklahoma. Kind of talk about where you think the growth of cotton is going to be moving across the state.
Yeah, so traditionally in Oklahoma, it's been sort of that southwest corner, and that they grow really good cotton down there, and a lot of experienced producers. But due to a variety of different reasons, we've seen cotton acres expand, across the U.S., but particularly in the Southwest, and Oklahoma is really one of the biggest areas that we've seen that expand. So, one of the challenges is going to be not only keeping up with the new developments and helping the folks that have been growing cotton for years on end in the Southwest corner, but the new developments and some of the new challenges we're going to face in these northern environments in northern Oklahoma and shorter season environments, and trying to manage a crop that's a little bit different than maybe what's traditionally grown in those areas.
What advice are you telling the producers up here in north central Oklahoma about thinking about growing cotton in this area?
So, the key is that, it's a perennial tree crop. And so it's a little bit different crop than what we see with a grain type crop. So we've really got to manage our inputs year long to really capitalize not only on pounds, because we got to make the pounds, but we've got to make those pounds high quality. And we know that if we can make a lot of cotton, but if it's poor quality fiber, it's not as profitable. So we want to make a lot of pounds in high quality fiber, and managing our inputs and sort of mitigating the risk of a short season environment to do that. And so that's really what we're focused on. It's kind of back to the basics.
Talk about the expansion in acres across Oklahoma and the U.S.
Well, a lot of it has to do with what we can make profitable, what we can make work. And We'd like for every crop to be profitable and like for everybody to have just a wide open market to choose what they want. Unfortunately, it's not always like that. Right. And more recently, cotton has kind of been a little more stable. And I think that kind of is a tip of the hat to the U.S. cotton producers. We make really good cotton in the U.S. That's what we do. You know, a lot of cotton is produced across the globe, but in the U.S. we're known for high quality cotton.
What can producers be doing right now to prepare for that planting season that's coming up pretty quick?
Yeah, I mean, I think really, you know, at this point, you've probably got your variety booked and chosen. Hopefully you probably got seed sitting somewhere.
Right.
Keeping an eye on the forecast. You know, right now we really want to plant into warm conditions, which we've had recently.
Right.
But we also really need to plant in the moisture. Cotton's a small seeded crop. We really need that first week or two of the season to go very well.
Right.
So watching the moisture, watching the temperatures, making sure we're planting a profitable population, not too much, not too little.
Right.
And then having once we get that seed in the ground, be watching for pests. Thrips can be a big one, and weeds. So kind of prepping ahead for that first 2 weeks of the season now. Not only the planting conditions, but also what challenges we may face in those first couple of weeks to ensure that we get that plant out of the ground and in good conditions.
Okay, thank you much, Seth Bird, the new cotton extensions, or the new extension cotton specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
We're always hearing about exports and what that means for the U.S., but Daryl, who exactly do we export to?
Well, in terms of beef exports, you know, if you look at the first 3 months of 2018, we've actually exported beef to about 100 countries, actually exactly 100 countries according to the data. However, 85 of those countries only amount to 5.9% of our total exports. So the other 15 countries, represent 94.1% of our total exports, and out of those, the 6 biggest countries account for 86.5% of our total exports.
So who's the major markets? What countries factor into that?
Well, you know, our major beef export markets are Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Hong Kong, Canada, and Taiwan. And so all of those have been major markets. They change position occasionally, and so far this year, all of them except Canada are up at least a little bit to quite a bit. Canada is actually down nearly 10% year over year.
We're always hearing about China, and China's in the news, especially recently. How does China factor in?
Well, China's one of those countries that's in that top 15, but not in the top 6. So they currently rank number 12. We've had access now for just about a year. We're watching those monthly statistics. China's the only one of those countries in that second tier of export countries that has potential to be a significantly bigger market.
What are the value of the exports?
You know, we focus a lot on exports as a component of demand. So if we send beef out of the country, that's an additional demand. It helps, in the case of it moderates supplies and adds to demand. That's certainly one of it. And we can put that in quantity terms or in value terms. There's a couple of other factors that are very important though. Beef is not one thing. It's many different products. A lot of times we're exporting products that don't really have much value in the U.S. So those are a bigger increment of net value. And one of the things that happens is when we export products that don't have as good a demand in the U.S., we actually are helping domestic demand because we're moving products out that we would otherwise eat. Beef is a perishable product, and if we produce it, it's going to get eaten. It's better to send it someplace where it has a higher value rather than having it detract from stronger demand for other products here in the U.S.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Daryl Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist at Oklahoma State University.
We're well into the spring breeding season for those cow herds here in Oklahoma that plan to have the breeding season take place from May and through June. One of the questions that often comes to mind for producers is what are the key factors that affect whether replacement heifers will get bred during this first breeding season in their lifetime? Well, there's a really interesting study done at Iowa State University, reported back in 2004, and they looked at records from over 3,100 replacement heifers from 6 different herds in 5 different states, and wanted to see what portion of the differences in conception rates and in pregnancy rates that was due to genetics, and what portion of the differences that they found was due to management, the way that we take care of the heifers. Now, when they got through looking at the data from all of these heifers, what they found was only 3% of the differences in conception rate was due to genetics. So 97% of the differences being due to the environment. When they looked at the heritability, or the percentage that was due to genetics of pregnancy rate, those that were pregnant after the end of an entire breeding season, it was higher at 13%. But that still means that 87% of the differences that they found in pregnancy rate are due to management, the way the heifers are handled and grown. Okay, that tells me then that one of the key things is still the way we grow heifers and how good a body condition they're in at the start of the breeding season. It also tells me that genetics does play a role in terms of over a long period of time, we can make a little improvement in the reproductive capability of the heifers that we keep in our herd. So I'd suggest that if at all possible, we select heifers from the cows that calved early in this year's calving season. That way we'll be, over time, be selecting those heifers that should have that genetic component for a little bit better reproductive rates. Management's still the biggest portion of it, but genetics can help us over a long period of time. I hope this helps you understand a little better some of the differences that we see in heifer reproduction from year to year, from cow herd to cow herd, and that way we can put those two particular strategies in our herd to get the highest percent each year that get bred. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
We're talking about pasture weeds with Alex Roccatelli, our Forage Systems Extension Specialist. And Alex, before we dive into weeds, remind everyone about the demonstration that's going on. It's been a couple of weeks since we checked in out here.
Right, so this is a pasture rewrap demonstration. What I'm trying to do here is to bring this pasture back to productivity, controlling weeds and also doing good management. So that's pretty much what we're trying to do this season here in this pasture.
Okay. Since we were last out here a couple of weeks ago, things have changed a little bit, including the appearance of quite a few weeds. Give us an update.
So before even we dive on weed control, specifically in this pasture, I would like to say something. When we talk about weed control in a pasture, the rule of thumb is, for we have a good economic return, we need to think about the 30% weed infestation threshold. Well, what I mean with that? Let's say if you have a pasture that is dominated 30% by weed in ground cover, well, if we really do a good weed control followed by good also fertilization, hopefully we get water, what happens is the amount of forage that we are going to have produced as a plus will pay off. For example, let's say we have a pasture that has 30% dominated by weeds, and we are producing about 4,000 pounds per acre. If the producer go there and really control those 30% weeds, they can release about 1,200 pounds per acre of forage production. In my opinion, that's a significant amount.
In terms of treating these weeds at the stage they are now, what's the best approach?
What we need to apply now is a selective herbicide. As you can see, the Bermuda grass green up, so we need to apply something that's not gonna hurt our Bermuda grass, just gonna kill the broadleaves weeds. So what we need to apply here, what we come up is a mix of dicamba and 2,4-D. And I really like when you work with mixes, because if you just have a molecule, let's say 2,4-D working, that molecule, that herbicide will kill some of the weeds, not all of them. But the dicamba can come and complement and kill the others. So as you can see, we have a bigger, wider spectrum of control. And also, we might be decreasing the potential of developing weed resistance.
And that is for this pasture, but we've talked before, and of course, every pasture is unique and has its own unique approach, right?
Right, exactly. So everything that I told you so far is specifically for this pasture. Each pasture is going to have different weeds in different stages, so the type of herbicide and also the rate's going to change.
So check in with the County Extension Office.
Exactly right.
Okay, Alex, thanks a lot, and we'll check in with you again soon.
Of course.
Combines will be rolling soon in Oklahoma, and Kim, by golly, there's some good news in the wheat markets.
Well, you look at prices on that KC July contract, you've had about a 50-cent increase. We've had some improvements around the basis. You look at cash prices for harvest delivered wheat, anywhere from $5.20 to one location, $5.50. So the price is significantly higher, and that's always good news.
What's driving this good news in the markets?
Well, it's bad news. You look at what's going on weather-wise, the potential yields, the potential quality of the crop. I talked to a producer down in southwestern Oklahoma, and he said for the first time in over 40 years, he probably won't harvest a grain of wheat. You talk to elevator manager, say at Frederick, he said, yeah, our harvest will probably start in the next week or so, and it'll probably last 2 or 3 days. Another one said it probably should just last 2 or 3 days, but the producers will drag it out. So lower production and some questions on quality in certain locations I think are driving these prices higher.
So that question on the crop, is that a worldwide problem?
Well, that's a good point there. If you look at what's going on in Russia, Australia, Canada, all those countries also have dry conditions, and Russia lowered their yield expectations this last week. So lower expectations for Canada, Australia, and Russia, that's also, I think, having a positive impact on our prices.
So let's bring it back to Oklahoma. When the wheat producer brings the wheat in, what are going to be some of the pluses and minuses that may impact the price?
Well, the positive things are if that wheat's got 58 plus or 59 pound plus test weight, and if it's got protein above 12, that's going to be some pretty valuable wheat. And there's some potential there to get premiums above that $5 and say 30-cent price. But on the other hand, I think discounts are going to be relatively high. They're going to look at test weight. If you don't have test weight or grade, you're going to get a pretty big discount. If you got foreign material or dockage, you're also going to get discounts. So those discounts are going to be relatively high this year.
Okay, thank you much, Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University. And now here's Dave Lawman with a cattle event going on in southern Oklahoma next week.
We're going to visit some of the most beautiful ranches in the state, progressive operations. These ranches range from 10,000 to 35,000 acres. Topics that will be covered on the tour would include prescribed fire. We'll talk about winter supplementation, grazing management, spring versus fall calving, and genetics, a whole host of topics. So we'll be in and around the Arbuckle Mountains and down close to Waurika in Stevens, Jefferson, and Carter counties. But there will be a broad diversity of topics covered and types of beef cattle production operations. So it'll be very educational.
Finally today, broadband internet is slow to reach parts of rural Oklahoma. But an Oklahoma State University researcher is partnering with select libraries around the state to see if, in fact, there is a need for speed.
I remember how excited I was the first time of connecting the AOL and hearing the modem, and I thought, wow, this is really neat, and I thought that was fantastic. We're not the most technologically advanced as a family, but we try to keep up with it and with the changes and all that. We hope someday they'll finally get fiber optics in our area, but my wife and I were always looking for a reliable program, fast and reliable. I'd never used a hotspot like that before.
Brian contacted me and just asked me if we would be interested in doing a hotspot pilot program. I didn't even know what a hotspot was at the time, so I was like, explain that. And in this area, rural is a little bit hard to get internet from either company. I mean, there's two major companies that service here. Neither one of them really do rural very well. So you've got all that rural population that has very limited access to internet. So, I mean, it is expensive for the companies to run the lines and reach all those rural places because there may be a mile in between houses.
Our waiting list up until recently was about 20 to 22 people. and they check them out for a week. We recently added 3 more, and so that has gone down quite a bit, but it's between 13 and 19 generally.
Do you have high-speed internet at your house?
No, I do not. The only internet service I have is the data that I have on my phone. You know, it's a little more expensive around rural areas to get it. It's available out there, but sometimes, you know, the speed's not very good. If you do get it, you're paying for it. And sometimes it's just in and out. You can't actually use it. You know, I've gone back and I've started doing research on, you know, opening a small business again. So it's been useful that way. I use it for all sorts of things though. You know, there's genealogy, there's, you know, just about anything you can think of. I have a niece that lives in Germany right now, so we video chat. So it, you know, it just serves lots of purposes.
Everybody gives it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it's like, you know, they would absolutely recommend it to their neighbor, to their family and friends. And the success stories we've seen about people starting small businesses, staying in touch with, you know, other people, just making productive use of the internet is really amazing.
What I do consulting, and then what my wife does is surface design, and use up a lot of, and that was a problem we had before, was with data, which, you know, we had to discover data and how fast she can blow through that. It's really helpful, and we appreciate it. No, like I said, the whole business of internet has changed so much in the last 5-10 years. So.
There's this digital divide between urban households. They connect at about 75% of households have an internet connection, and rural households, which only have about a 60-65%. So there's this persistent kind of 10 percentage point gap. And what we're trying to do is to address that gap, get people to use the internet, see the advantages of it, and kind of look at the issue that way.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime on our website at sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.